Hello and welcome everyone, I am the PC Noob. If you're not familiar, this is Banished. Today I will give you a brief summary, my first impressions of, and a few tips and tricks for Banished. Developed solely by Luke Hodorowicz, Banished began development in 2011. Hodorowicz, using the studio name Shiny Rock Software, developed Banished using a rebuilt engine initially intended for a zombie shooter. Instead, Banished was released on February 18, 2014. Banished is a city builder in which the player takes control of a small group of banished individuals who must work together in order to survive the harsh elements. Equipped with a small cart to start, the player must quickly decide how best to keep the villagers alive. Easily one of the coolest features about Banished is that you can basically customize your heads-up display. I prefer to keep the Professionalist tab displayed at all times for easy management of the community's jobs. From here you can decide how many villagers will be designated either a laborer or a builder. As you construct new buildings, more professions will become available. Another key tab I like to keep visible at all times is the Village tab. From here you can see the total amount of logs, stone, iron, food, medicine, temperature, season, and population, among other information. The most difficult tasks to overcome at first is surviving the winter. Villagers require heat to survive the winter, otherwise they could freeze to death. Productivity will decrease if they are not properly dressed too. Villagers will retreat to their homes during the winter and rely on firewood to keep warm. A good way to start building your community is to start clearing out some land. Click on the Destruction tab and generally click the All button. This will remove anything in the area. Next, designate the area in order to clear. This will not only give you a nice clean surface to work with, but will also start to stock various resources. A good idea to keep in mind is to place multiple stockpiles scattered throughout the city in various locations with a lot of production. This will give the villagers easier access to all the community's goods. Once you have gathered some resources, it is time to decide what is best for your village: hunting, farming, gathering, forestry, etc. There are many choices to start, but some more crucial buildings are necessary in developing a stable community. To start, I suggest building the required amount of homes needed to house all your villagers. This is not a priority for this village, but here I demonstrate the need for housing. The icon above each villager represents the need for shelter. As houses are constructed, each villager will find an accommodating abode, and their need for shelter will disappear. Houses with a snowflake icon above them require heat immediately. Next, I would suggest building a woodcutter in order to start stockpiling firewood for the winter. Another building I like to start off with is the Gatherer's Hut. Gatherers will scavenge the territory within the illustrated circle for berries, mushrooms, and other edible resources. These come in handy during the late months of the winter. Something to keep in mind is that the more trees you cut down, the less local wildlife there will be. I bring this to your attention as another key building to start with is the Hunter's Cabin. Here, hunters will seek out local wildlife for food as well as leather or hides. Once processed by a tailor, this will lead to a renewable source of leather coats to keep your villagers warm. Once these structures are established, you may need to wait for villagers to begin reproducing. The reproduction rate of your villagers can be increased with the amount of housing available to them. More houses mean more families can be started. Villagers will tend to live together unless new houses become available. The first tab along the bottom is used to control the speed of time. I like to run the game at 2 times speed for the majority of the time, occasionally speeding up during the slow times and pausing during the chaotic ones. Constructing roads to connect various buildings is key to a steady production. Villagers will use these roads to travel quickly to and from their destinations. If you are fortunate enough to start with some livestock, I suggest building a pasture early on to allow them a place to graze. If you are not fortunate enough to start with a storage barn, I strongly recommend building one as soon as possible. A tailor is useful for making warm clothing to keep your villagers active during the winter months. A blacksmith will construct tools from iron that your villagers require in order to perform their duties. These two structures are very important in the stabilization of a community. By this time, I'm sure you will be faced with your first winter. Make sure you are prepared with plenty of food and firewood. Some villagers may retreat to their homes and production will dwindle, but this is okay. Once spring has sprung, it is time to start thinking about agriculture. Crops can only be planted in the springtime. This is very important to remember. Make sure you designate villagers to the farming profession as early in the spring as possible to maximize the yields on your fields. Orchards are another great source of food. However, unlike crop fields, orchards plant in the fall. In order to change the type of tree planted in an orchard, you are required to cut down all existing trees. Try to time this so you're able to replant the trees when it becomes fall. If food becomes a major issue, I suggest building a fishing dock. Fishermen will then accumulate fish as a food resource. As with the depletion of trees, repeated farming in one area will deplete the soil minerals and leave it useless for future generations. Also, the rapid depletion of fish and game can result in the extinction of that species. Once these basic buildings are established and well maintained, I suggest looking into building a quarry and a mine. A quarry is useful for producing large amounts of stone. This will come in handy for mass expansion or in any remodeling required in your community. The mine is an excellent way to obtain precious iron and is the easiest way of obtaining coal. Coal is required for advanced tools. The expansion of your community will rely on how well fed, happy, and healthy your villagers are. Not all resources are available to each map, making every playthrough different. In order to obtain rare crops and livestock, a trade depot must be built. A waterway connected to the main water source is required to do so. Basically, any river that runs from one edge of the map to the other. Once built, a trade depot will harbor resources you designate for trade. Once a merchant arrives in town, you may begin bargaining for those hard-to-obtain resources. Be careful, strangers from other lands can bring illness to your villagers. This also applies to any nomads that will occasionally visit your community seeking refuge. With no endgame and no predetermined objectives, Banished is a game that truly reflects all the players' decisions and is the ultimate test of risk and resource management. Make sure you check out www.shiningrocksoftware.com to purchase Banished. You can pick it up for $19.99. I hope you found this video enjoyable, enlightening, or at least entertaining. If you did, make sure you click that like button. Subscribe to my channel to stay up to date with the latest videos. And as always, have a good one.